From the great halls of their house, there are assembled three who hope to one day be the world's greatest driving heroes. Created from the cosmic legends of the universe comes our team captain, the Vision, Bill Fisher, and their soon-to-be Wonder Woman, Vicky Fisher, and our Captain Marvel and head flight trainee, Jennifer Scripchuk. Their mission: to fight injustice, share what is right and wrong, to get you out of your house and come out racing with them and serve all mankind. They are the Garage Heroes in Training Team.
Welcome to the Garage Heroes in Training Podcast. I'm going to be one of the hosts for this episode. My name is Bill. Who else is hosting?
I'm Vicky.
I'm Audra.
Like we had a choice, right? We really don't. That's why sometimes you got to mess with it. But anyway, ladies, we have a guest from FCP Euro, the Director of Creative Services. He races minis in GLTC and a little bit of other places. And he put together a video series for YouTube, which I've watched multiple times and will be using as a pattern for exactly what I will be working on this winter. Yes, I will be working on a car for those playing the home game. I will work on a car, and Vicky will save me and make it better. But anyway, that's fine. Welcome to the podcast, Ben Marouski.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here. Anything minis and racing and slap some FCP Euro in there, it's in my realm. So I'm glad you guys reached out.
We have reached out to FCP Euro several times in the past, and we had never found the right person.
Went to the wrong people, yeah.
Or they saw the email address and said, "No, not those guys." But That's fine. It's fine. We wear you down. It's okay. So, sir, we've done a bunch of podcasts. We've done several things well, and one of the things we don't do well is introductions. Did we miss some things that we should talk about? Anything?
No, I mean, if you ask most people that know me, that's probably me in a nutshell. I work a lot because I love my job at FCP Euro, and then I think about minis a lot. I've been a glutton for punishment for, I want to say 10 years now, maybe, in the mini game. So yeah, that's definitely me in a nutshell.
I think Audra may have us beat. We were 2009. Audra, what were you?
2005.
Yeah, she's got us beat.
Oh, that's an OG. Yeah.
Back in the day.
I miss that car so much, I can't even tell you.
Yeah, anybody who gets rid of a mini regrets getting rid of their mini.
Audra, I know somebody who's got some minis, just, FYI. Green.
You can get them for free now, too. We've had a spree here at work. I finally have convinced people that minis are the way. Actually, it was the Mini Cupper that did it. Ironically, not my fully built race car that actually everybody's seen me replace multiple engines in, so that's probably why they stayed away. But recently, we've had, I want to say 3 people who have obtained free minis. One JCW R53, one base R50, and then an R56. And I don't know how this keeps happening, but I'm all about it because now there's a ton of minis in the lot.
And you might know a place to get some parts here or there.
Yeah, I think that's why we're all really guilty of having multiple cars here at FCP Euro. Is just the access, everybody can't see, but to my right, about 25 yards is our entire distribution center. So working on a car, starting a project that you shouldn't start, or even, you stay after work to work on something and you forget something and you can go back to the distribution center, place an order and grab what you need. So it's good, but it's bad.
I wish my garage
I currently have a Spec E30 and I understand that you're my guy for that as well.
Oh yeah, we got you covered. That's actually our roots. When we first started grassroots racing was in an E30 in AER. So that's it's got a sweet spot for us.
Nice.
That might have been your car, Audra. You never know.
So what cars are you currently racing?
So currently we actually stepped away from professional motorsports. Just this last year was our first year. And I want to say 6 years. So we were racing GT4 and IMSA. So we had 2 Mercedes AMG GT4s. And we raced those for 2 years. 2 years before that, we had, or the 2 previous years, we raced Volkswagen Golf TCRs in TC America with SRO. And then what led into that was our Mercedes C300, which you can see behind me. And that was our AER car. And then before that was our E30. So that was a reverse lineage of where we've landed. But yeah, we've honestly kind of switched focus from professional motorsports and gotten a bit more involved with the cars that we're building here internally now. So instead of kind of, professional is you can't really build, right? Like unless you're in BTCC, you're buying a homologated, factory race car. And that's just not really who we are as a brand, just given that we sell car parts, we're car people, we like wrenching. So there was a little bit of a disconnect for us. So most recently, we just built an ARA rally spec Cayman, which is cool. It's actually in the retail center right in front of me. And before that, we built a 190E kind of DTM tribute car that we put a modern AMG engine, 4-cylinder turbocharged engine into. And that was just for having fun at GridLife, giving, ride-alongs, that sort of thing. But allowed us to focus more on the parts and kind of like the journey that we all go through when we build cars, right?
Mhm.
And then in terms of racing, though, this R56 Mini is still out there. We've pushed heavier into grassroots in general, just because we always want to have our toes in motorsports in some form. So if it's not professional, like we're still getting out there. One of the guys on my team, actually, Steven's sitting over here. He's editing right now. He works at night. He races a Spec E46 in NASA and also in AER, and he's building a 1 Series as well. So it's still in our DNA. It's still in the people here. It's just, we reevaluated, I guess.
So how did you personally get into racing?
So I actually, before I moved to Connecticut for FCP Euro, I was living in Detroit for the last 10 years. I've been here 5 years now, but I wasn't even that hardcore of a car person when I moved out there. And then just after working in the agency world and doing what I was doing with 3D and cars, I just kind of got bit by the bug. It's hard to not when you're in Detroit. And so I just started doing track days with some of my friends who were actually just more ingrained in that. And ironically, the buddy who really convinced me to do it owned an R53 JCW. And I always wanted a Mini. I don't know. I never did it. I was kind of like too young. I think I was like middle or early high school years when they first got here. So I remember having a friend that had his mom had a red JCW, like 03, like fresh. And I was just like, oh, this is the coolest thing ever. It was the first time I'd heard a supercharger and that sort of thing. So I always had this like longing want for one. And it wasn't until I actually lost my Focus ST. I was working at Ford at the time and I lost it in a flood in Detroit. And I justified. I was like probably 2 years into tracking. So I not fully built that car, but I was just starting to dip my toe. And that's when I was like, okay, I'm getting a Mini now.
So it's the supercharger noise that did it for you.
It was. And just like my background's in like art, 3D, creativity, design. And so like the fact of how eclectic like the Mini was and just unique. And that was kind of their first marketing push, right? It was like how you could customize them.
Right.
So I remember like learning Photoshop by like modifying Minis in like class. So
That's awesome.
yeah. So go ahead.
Minis were just your way to go at that point. They
Yeah,
just kind of charged you
Yeah,
up.
like it did. It identified who I was, which is like I don't like having the same thing as someone else. Just in general, it could be the same shoes, it could be the same hat, just not my style. So like the Mini was always kind of like this little bit of an underdog, especially in Detroit, where like the Euro scene is pretty small. So, it was just whether I was cruising Woodward and it was like this little Mini Cooper making all these noises, or I was going to the track and just destroying, 911s or whatever, someone was under driving like more car than they can handle.
Mhm.
I just loved that feeling. So I kind of stuck with it. And you get that through track days at first, right? Where you're like, okay, you're moving up to the ranks and you're like, why am I going so much faster than everyone in this little slow car? And then that led into time attack and that led into racing.
So why were you going faster with that particular car?
I think it was just confidence in it too. Like it wasn't that expensive of a car. I think when I bought it, maybe I spent like 14 grand on it. It was, I think, honestly, a little bit of it was just not being afraid to drive it hard. Like my Focus felt brand new. It was a brand new Focus ST. I was probably in it for like 35 grand. And I think most people are into their cars for way more than that when they first go to the track. So I think I just had this comfortability in the car. And yeah, the Minis, it wasn't slow on a straight, but it's not the fastest car. But then everybody knows how quickly it can handle and how much I'd outbrake, the majority of cars, just knowing how hard you can push them into the brake zones and stuff. So I think it was a combination of those things.
They feel really solid for a little car. Like they feel like a tank, right?
Yeah, you just feel like you're really in control of it. I think that's why I just felt very connected to the car. And like my Focus was actually, I think it's an underutilized platform as well. Like the car rotated just as much as you wanted it to. Yeah, it was a little torque steery, but like it's honestly a really well set up car from factory. Even just the Mini outshined it in every sort of way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Did you ever drive an original Mini yet on track?
I have not on track. No.
I think we need to fix that, don't you?
Yeah,
I
If
think
I
we
could,
need to get together and we both need to do it. 'Cause,
I
Yeah.
think I think a group
Well,
group visit. If there was only a track that we could go to,
yeah, if only we had like a
FC
10-year, if only had a 10-year partnership with Lime Rock or something, it would work.
something like that.
Yeah. No, yeah, I've always wanted to. That's I've had moments where I want to give up on the R56 platform and just race vintage and get an old Mini, like a wide body low
Mhm.
guy on like 15-inch wheels and just rip.
you should do that. And let's that would be great. And I will come and visit you. So what are the goals? Like, what are your to-dos, your bucket list items? Track series, cars.
Honestly, when I met the guys from Team O'Neill, I used to watch their content all the time, and I've loved the idea of building a rally car for like rally sprints. So I don't think I ever, especially with kids now, I don't think I could ever do stage rally. Like I just don't know if, like I'm saying with a Mini, I could push it as hard as I want, like 11/10 on the track. I don't think I'd ever get there with rally.
Mhm.
But I did a rally sprint out in Colorado a few years ago just for fun, and I was like, I could totally build a car for this, and it would kind of get back into like the time attack roots, but also just like get me out there kind of into nature with car stuff and then just building something different. This is not why we built the Cayman that we just built. It wasn't for me, but we are friends with the guys at Team O'Neill, and we've been working closely with them on that project. And the more I'm in that realm, the more I see another avenue for me wasting time, money, energy, and effort into something. Not wasting, but spending. So yeah, that, and I mean, yeah, I'd say that's my current aspiration.
Oh, that sounds cool.
It's harder when you got little ones to get out and do what you want to do.
Indeed.
Yeah, it's I think my level of guilt just went up. I always felt guilty with how much my brain power was just spent on cars and racing and getting to the track. And it's like I get this really bad look in my eye when I have to get ready for an event where it's like nothing matters. Like everybody here at work gives me a hard time because they're like, you could have 9 months, you could have 2 years, or you could have a week, and you're still here like the night before doing some random project or some prep or something. And it's just like that's just kind of who I am. And so it's unhealthy, but it's healthy for me at the same time.
I thought that was normal.
I think it is. At least we tell ourselves that it's normal.
Absolutely. It's a hobby, so it winds up at the last minute, right?
Yes. And there's
I
always
think-
more to do.
Yeah. I think in a marriage it's good to have something that you love to do. Both people.
Yeah.
They have an opportunity to go out. It keeps things healthy.
No, it does. It does. And my wife's always been really supportive about it. I mean, I feel bad because our first few years of her traveling with me for time attack is when like we would drive to Canada, her and I, we'd have the dog, we'd be lugging tires, she'd be slinging tires all weekend, and then like I'd be on my second session and I would blow a head gasket on the Mini, and then we're like my weekend shot, I'm miserable trying to fix it, and it was literally probably like 2 years of that where it's just like constant problems. But we had a really good group of friends in Detroit that was like traveling around with us from event to event. Like I'd be competing, they'd be doing track days, other people would just come and hang out. So it was like always a really good experience. And even to this day, like my daughter, I showed her, we were going over our science stuff last night, and I showed her a globe, and she asked where we lived. She asked where mommy's family was, which my wife's from the Philippines. And then the third question was, where's Lime Rock? Which is like awesome. So I was like, I'm doing something right.
That's good parenting, buddy. Good parenting.
Yeah. So she's grown up at the track, which is cool. So I want to get her into a cart as soon as I can. And she goes wheeling with us when we go off roading, and she understands that it's a part of me, it's a part of who we are. She was 3 months old. I have pictures of her in the GT4s and that sort of thing. So she's always been around it.
She's growing up with it.
Yeah.
There you go. So when you're out on the track, do you have a racing philosophy?
This is where and as much as I spoke so highly of minis, it actually has hurt me in my current driver, I guess, career. Just because I've had so many issues where I haven't been able to focus the last 2 years on driving as much as I've had to focus on the car, which is terrible, right? Like when you're on the track or at the track or racing, like I want to be focused on racecraft and, actually where I'm finishing in the race, and not like, am I going to overheat? Is something going to happen to the car? What's that noise? Why is it doing this? So as much as I'd like to say, it's X, Y, or Z, it's been a lot about the car. And that's, I guess, a good point to make there is like, don't let that be you. Don't let that be your problem. Like, so you can focus on driving, because I think I was potentially a faster, better driver when my car was more stock and I drove it to the track and I drove it during the week. If I installed something, I could go drive on the street. It's not that easy when you have a full blown race car. That's not street legal. So
Yeah.
oftentimes, again, with kids and costs, it's like I don't have time to go test as much as I want to. And so sometimes that happens on a race weekend or the day before or, the weekend before. And yeah, it's just there's a lesson there for sure.
Yeah, I could see that. So we usually have a traditional question. We call it the good, the bad, the ugly. So as far as your racing, what would be an example of something good or something that you would recommend to a friend who's getting into it? What would be something bad that you would say, hey, don't do this? I've seen it, or perhaps even worse, that I did it. And then ugly is really just an excuse for a story time. So it can go anywhere you want.
Okay. Well, I've got each of those. Good for me is something that, and we'll go racing, not just like track days and stuff. I think for me, racing was getting really comfortable with being uncomfortable, especially around other people. Like, I don't think about that anymore, right? Like, I could be 4 wide into turn 1 and it's just like, I'm fine. The person next to me is fine. Everything's gonna be okay. I'm not even considering like it's just like you trust your peripherals, you're trusting everyone around you. And that's something that just takes time, because like if you go out, I've gone out recently on track days with buddies and I'll not intentionally bully, but be in their mirrors and you can just feel the uncomfortability. And that just comes from doing more and more of that. Right. So like being too wide, doing drills, even in that sense. So good would be like get comfortable with the uncomfortable and being close to people and trusting your peripherals, learning where your mirrors need to be, not living in your mirrors, but like, how are you looking forward, but still seeing what's next to you and behind you, that sort of thing. So I think there's something to be said that for people who are just getting into it, because that can be a very uncomfortable space.
Right. What about something bad? Don't do this.
I'll go back to what I just said, is like, don't build a car that doesn't allow you to focus on driving. So do as much as you can before you take that next step into racing to make sure that you and your car are actually where it needs to be. I think the worst thing that you can do is like, already a track situation, never mind racing, is like, you're tired. You probably drove really far to get there. You're not sleeping in your own bed. You're up early. Drivers' meetings are early. Like, the last thing you want to be worried about is like something mechanical. Did I do this? Is the car going to do that? You want that confidence. So really, it's just probably devoting some time and effort into both testing and prep. I know it's easier said than done. Like you said, it's kind of always part of it, but I'd say that's a big one for me, is really the less you can focus on the car, or if you're focusing on the car, it should be set up. It should be how to go faster, what you're taking out, and not, is it going to survive?
Not what is that noise, or why doesn't it start, or or yeah. I think we've all been there. We have a team rule that the car has to be in the trailer a week before a track event.
Oh, it's amazing.
I didn't say we did it. I just said it's a rule.
That's a
So
rule.
rules are meant to be broken. Yeah.
But
I think we've done it
we have
twice.
yet to achieve it.
No, I think we did it twice.
That's good aspirations, though.
Yeah, it's the rule.
We shoot for it.
Yeah.
I should say, or I always say that to myself, like, just pretend it's a week before, because
exactly.
then I'll be there till 4 a.m., but it'll be the week before, and like, it's fine.
And then I can sleep.
Yeah.
That'd be great. Just, luckily we know good places to get parts, so we can get there. So that's okay. And then story time. Any racing story you want to get into? Frozen. Is that me or him?
And so it's funny, like the car behind me,
You froze.
like that 2 years ago.
You froze, sir. Okay. Just pretend I just asked you the question, because you were scratching your eye and you looked very serious for a while.
Okay. So I was just saying, the car behind me, the R56, didn't look like that 2 years ago. So it's finally in a place where I'm like really stoked with where the car is at, both mechanically, visually, just everything about it. But it's come a really long way in 2 years, because 2 years ago I had kind of like the ultimate low of my track driving experience, which was it was right after getting my race license early on in the season. Was out at Watkins Glen, which is my favorite track since I moved to the East Coast. Absolutely amazing. And I was there for a NASA race, and it looked like it was gonna be a cold, rainy weekend, which front wheel drive, okay, everything's gonna be fine. But anyways, I went out for qualifying, and we got red flagged from a pretty bad wreck. So I had put down an okay wet lap time, but I came in and decided to go back out because they gave us another qualifying session, and was stuck behind some spec Miatas, getting impatient. So I came in to get a gap, and then I rushed back out. And instead of like rewarming up my tires, which I was on Hoosier, H2Os, I was kind of hustling to get back around to set up a lap time because you don't want to go that slow around walk-ins. Like going slow around walk-ins, especially in the rain, is like 3 minutes. So was driving at a brisk pace, got off the wet line going to the bus stop, and I had 2 tires in the wet and 2 in the dry, and lost the car into the wall. Not even on a flying lap, was literally just trying to get the car out there, and went into the wall for my first time ever. And yeah, the whole right side of the car just completely broadsided. I went in at like, I don't know, 60 or 70 miles an hour and just smashed in the entire right side of the car.
That's
Daughter was 2 years old. Wife was there. We were camping. It was supposed to be a fun, nice weekend, and it turned into, just a really, really harsh reality of like how quickly this can be taken from you. And it wasn't, I was so just frustrated and disappointed because it wasn't in like, I couldn't relive it and say like, oh, shouldn't have pushed that braking zone, but like you were battling, and if that's what happens. It was just stupid. It was just like, was being lackadaisical and trying to go back out for a faster lap time and wasn't even on a flyer and just casually got off the rain line and lost the car. And it just was so disappointed in myself. And thought the car was kind of done.
Yeah. Well, Watkins Glen doesn't give you a whole lot of margin for error in some spots. So
yeah, it doesn't.
It happens.
It does. And everybody kind of said that, like, they were like, it's good that you got out of the way. Like, they were like, I'm surprised you've gone, 7 or 8 years driving on the track with nothing like this happening. And it did. It gave me a little bit of, I don't know, I guess, I don't want to say respect, but just like, it was almost like it, now looking back, it's like refreshing that I got it over with, because like, I think as anyone who drives on a track, you always have that in the back of your head. What if, what's it going to feel like? What happens? And I actually feel better now, like, especially after rebuilding the car, where I'm like, okay, like that was a pretty bad situation. And, that's the car now. Like and it's okay. It cost me like $500 in parts from us and a bunch of sweat equity, and it's back out there. So.
Yeah. Plus, a guy at FCP Euro, so you're probably okay there.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's just say we didn't have rear quarter panels on our website, and then we had rear quarter panels on our website.
Well, you buy one, you buy many, it's all the same. It's all
well,
good.
I was like, well, that with our lifetime replacement guarantee is pretty rough. I'm like, I don't feel any caution now.
Oh, we'll talk about that lifetime warranty thing. We're going to talk about that.
So, on your racing history, can you line up what the order of your racing history is?
Yeah. So I think I probably did 3 years maybe of just track day. And we were, Michigan, we were renting on a track for sometimes only $1,500. So we could get a bunch of friends out there and we would rent it out, 12 times a year. So we're getting a ton of track time. So it went from track days for maybe 3 years to time attack for another 3 years. Then once I moved to Connecticut, got my race license with NASA, and then that's when GLTC came about at the same time. So then it made sense that I could move over for wheel to wheel from NASA over to GridLife, just because that's where I was doing time attack and some of my track day stuff. So that was it in a nutshell in a really short way. So hopefully that was quick enough.
So what are your plans for next year?
GLTC again. So we are hopefully partnering with GridLife. We've been partners with GridLife for 3 or 4 years now. They've been great to us, and we love being a part of it. So I think it'll align with kind of what we're doing as a company, as long as what I want to do personally. So hopefully West Coast race, some of the Midwest stuff, and then we'll be doing Circuit Legends, which is our home track and that sort of thing. So I'm aiming for 4 to 5 races with them. And then the NASA ST4 class has gotten like 15 to 20 cars locally. So like I wouldn't mind just doing like, I want to say laid back weekend. It's never laid back because I'm hyper competitive, but like laid back in the sense of like not trying to do something with the whole season, but maybe stop in for a race with them at NJMP.
With Northeast?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do you have any targets for next year?
I mean, realistically, if I could finish top 10 in GLTC, like, which sounds crazy because like most grassroots racing, you're just like, oh, like I should win, right? Like, and the classes are relatively, reasonable, but like a class of 45 to 50 hyper competitive cars from the entire country, like it's like pro-am racing. So if I could finish in the points, I'd be super stoked.
Yes, you should be, sir.
So that's an actual goal for me. And it's not like I don't think I can, I should be building the car right now if I was trying to, place top 3 for the season. I definitely consider myself where I'm at, both in my career and as a dad, is just like, it's good for me to set realistic expectations, because if like hyper competitive Ben comes out and thinks he's going to do something that I'm probably not, then I won't have fun. So I think a goal is top 10.
That's a big ask, sir.
It is.
GLTC is no joke.
It's not, which I love. Like that's honestly like was one of my pet peeves getting into grassroots, was just like I didn't like finishing in the top 3 in my first race just because there were 6 cars. Like
Right.
I just didn't have that sense of pride. Like it was cool and I had a great time racing, but I kind of like we go back to why I drive a Mini. It's the same idea as like why I like GLTC, is like you're an underdog, right? Like it's difficult to do well in.
Yeah, there's not many minis that have done GLTC well.
No.
Can we talk about the setup of the car that you need for the GLTC?
Sure. Yeah, so it's the class is cool because it's very much so like a builder's class. So and what I mean by that is like you're not getting penalized, like to say penalized, but like points for like every single modification on the car. There's much broader strokes. So in general, it's a 12.5 to 1 power to weight ratio, which is a really good spot for the Mini. My car weighs around 2,500 pounds, and you take modifiers based on aero, and that will dictate what size tire you can run. So the car behind me, I run at around 2,600 pounds, 205 horsepower, as much torque as I want. And then I have, rear aero, front aero. It's front wheel drive, so it gets a bonus for that. That's pretty much it. So it's not like, oh, because I have modified, control arms, or because I have 3-way adjustables. Like I'm not taking a penalty for those things. And then that also allows me to run up to a 245 tire, being at that weight range. So that's what I run on the car.
Sounds like a car.
It's a car.
It's quite a car. So the friend of ours who's been racing for years, because we go with GridLife. We've been to all the East Coast and a couple others, but I was trying to explain to him what the rules were and what the horsepower was and the weight and everything, and then the times at Lime Rock, and he's like, that you can't do that. And I'm like, they do a lot. All of them do. So it's
insane how far. I mean, even from when I first got into GridLife and looking at what a GLTC trimmed car would do back then, I don't know if it's just like this generation of drivers has just gotten faster, because like even track days, they just weren't that common, especially for like a younger demographic. And then I don't know if it's just like years of pushing and cars getting built and understanding where it's just like people just got fast. And like that's like to your point, Bill, like you talk to people and they're like, there's no way. And you're like, yeah, these are what would be considered slow cars going really fast.
Yeah, exactly. And then you got,
so for racing minis in general, do you have any tips or tricks that you would want to
yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of people reach out to me over the years just asking kind of what I'm doing and this versus that. One of the first things I started playing around with, which I learned from James Houghton, who's one of the fastest drivers in North America, time attack guy, also very fast in GLTC. He had taken the Mini out years ago at an event, and I just asked him for feedback. And the first thing he told me was like, let's go reverse staggered on this thing. So I ran that for years, which was just like I was running a 255 up front and a 225 in the rear. And that just got the car to rotate insanely well, almost to the point of it being a little bit loose, but you're running just less rotational mass. It just got the car to be extremely nimble and fast. So that was one of the first things that really started to make a difference. And then I started to work with one of the race engineers here who's helped us out, and he helps out Jeff Ricca from Gen Racer, and he was helping me set up the car, and we put a ton of rake in it. And that was, again, another thing where it's just like, whoa, like to the car almost became undrivable for me. But especially in the pro circuit, they're just like, loose is fast with front wheel drive. So like you got to loosen the car up as much as you can in a controlled way. And so we played it a lot with kind of ride height and just the way the car is actually handling at that limit. And James drives a really loose car. Like
yes, he does.
So it's been good because I got that advice and I've had people help me take it to that point, and then I've been able to kind of back it out from there, from where I'm actually comfortable or feel fast. Because if you don't feel fast, then you don't have the confidence, and if you don't have the confidence, then you're not driving well.
Yeah.
So do's and don'ts.
Like if you're starting from a fresh build.
Oh,
talking from a for instance.
So if I could build the car again, I could tell you what I would do if that helps.
Absolutely. I'm taking notes.
Yeah. So I wouldn't touch the engine at all, basically. I think like the easiest and cheapest way to go fast in a Mini is you put a rear sway bar on the car, you put a better brake compound up front, and you put a clutch type limited slip in it, and you will go fast. That's like the easy recipe for people to not overspend on a build. You can do what I did, which is just like go absolutely insane in every single aspect of the car, and then you want front camber. Like if you could throw camber plates on and you'd be fine.
Okay. What about like I'm gonna get people mad, but I have both cars. BMWs, you have to go replace all the cooling. Just basically replace the cooling system when you don't know what it is after 20 years of whatever, E36, E46. It's like a weak spot. Is that the same for the Mini, since they're kind of BMWs?
Yeah, I mean, I've inherently had horrible issues with cooling on the car. That started from me saying don't touch the engine, which is like realistically it should be okay. Like there's no aftermarket radiator hack that you can do. I mean, you could throw cooling nozzles and use your washer reservoir on a switch and cool the front of the car that way. But there's very few ways to actually duct things really well, just because there's not a lot of space up there. So even when you remove the AC condenser, it's like still not a ton of space or room. But I mean, as far as like the equivalent of the E36, E46, it's like, yeah, I think plastics can get brittle over time,
right.
But like, sure, you can update your thermostat housing and make sure your lines aren't brittle. But for the most part, it's not really the problem, other than like the coolant pipe on an N14.
Right.
But yeah, I think from factory, like you could throw a small tune on the car. Like that's when you start to upset things, is when you start to ignore NOx sensors and you're overworking the turbo and you're heat soaking, and any turbo car is not going to like that. But like I tracked my Gen 3 Mini and I freaking loved it, and it was bone stock with a B48. Yeah, I had a JB4 on it, but like it just livens it up torque wise, and the car was just happy. Like I could just go out and lap and lap and lap, and I had plenty of power. That car literally was sway bar, brakes. I actually have a cool story about that, but I don't need to get into it. That was a fun one.
We're gonna. So the ladies, I do not think that they have seen the Mini Cupper project. So for our listeners, and perhaps for Vicky or maybe Audra, I'm not sure. Tremendous video series on YouTube. Highly recommend, especially if you're going to make a Mini, and maybe explain what it was, what you thought about, and what you guys pulled off.
Captain's Log Supplemental.
So, Bill, guess what?
What?
We did the Sentinel. We did the Sentinel.
We did. How did
we
you
were
like it?
You know what? We were talking about the Sentinel.
We have.
It was great. We understood watching how the Sentinel works, but we finally got it into our car, and I got to tell you, that was really awesome. I was able to see every one of my mistakes.
We have hours of them.
We have hours of my mistakes,
Right.
but we have hours of good stuff too, which is awesome. It actually showed us the speed. Did it show us where we were on track?
We were streaming it
We were streaming it live.
boring billions of people across the world.
But it was pretty incredible. Plus, on it, you're able to put your insignia, your logos on your app also, and the clarity was amazing. It was really easy to put in, easier than I thought it was.
I know, you kept making a big deal out of it. I'm like, it's really not that hard. Until we focused on it, it wasn't too bad. And then we got some help.
No.
It was pretty easy.
Yeah, it was. It was pretty good.
You know what? I like the stream because some of the tracks we go to don't have great cell phone coverage, but it's got a USB stick backup. So I just uploaded the high quality video without the cellular interruption. So if you watched us earlier and said, wow, they got from there to there really quickly, you can watch the real video and see that no, we didn't. It's just a cell phone went out. But
Yeah. So the learning curve for me, obviously, I'm slightly techno Amish.
slightly.
What slightly when it comes to the wiring and stuff like that, but we get it in and I love it. We were able to sit there right at the track and watch what we were doing in the car, and that was amazing.
Which was good because if you have a problem with your radio, you can tell, if something is going on that you need to know about. Like a couple times we've had cars come in and we didn't know they were broken. I know it's hard to imagine one of our cars being broken, but whatever. But you can watch the video, and even with the cell phone coverage we had at that particular event, it was like a 30-second delay. So it wasn't bad. And you can compare multiple drivers because you have each of the stints are broken up. So we got to work on not only our driving, but if we wanted to, we could work on our pit stops and see exactly what we do. And there's some things that we need to talk about as a team. And it was pretty good. Like I said, it takes me, once we got the wiring hooked up for the power, I probably could go from an empty shell to a full up setup running Sentinel. I could probably do that in like 20 minutes. So you could literally install it in a car before a race. It's kind of fun.
Yeah.
And we got to see the driver and the front windshield. And if we want to, we can have three. We can see backwards. Or one of the guys we were going to work with at the upcoming event, he said, could you put a camera on the driver's eyes so we could see what they're looking at? I said, why, yes, I can. Haven't done it yet, but I'll figure it out. I've got time.
Well, I love it.
All right, very well. That sounds like I can buy another one then. Woo!
Sure. So the general notion was like we had just come off of building a pretty serious project with the 190E, right? Which was like engineering, designing parts, manufacturing stuff, like getting crazy, which is cool as a Halo project. But then it was like, okay, how do we do the literal opposite of that? And so the whole kind of shtick was like, what if we just built the car start to finish at the track in one night with a bunch of friends, like you would if you had a bunch of buddies and you said, hey, everybody throw in $1,000. We're going to buy a car and just go have fun, but also kind of be competitive, which is kind of why Sundae Cup's a sweet spot. And so that's basically what we did. We bought a salvage yard based R56, which I was so mad at the guys because they were supposed to like find, a car. It could be rough, but like not disintegrating. And they came back. First off, they didn't strap it into the trailer, so it yielded itself into the front of the trailer, which is like perfect.
Yeah.
And of course, they weren't rolling cameras. I was like, it's fine as long as you had a GoPro in the trailer and like we can get the shot of it like hitting the front of the trailer. Then they pulled into the shop and they're like, oh, the guy said it needs an engine mount. Well, we put it up on the lift and the entire front subframe was disintegrated. So it didn't need an engine mount. It literally needed a place to mount the engine.
I mean, that's mounting the engine mount.
Exactly.
So close.
Yeah. So it was it had a giant exhaust leak. It was in rough shape, which is again perfect from a content perspective and even from like a parts perspective. Like we were going to refresh as much as we could, but that was like a week or two before the event where we're like, oh, we'll do like a day or two of refresh and we'll do some. This was like, oh shoot, like we got to get a subframe. We got to take everything out. We got to replace as much as we can. We can't have like this thing literally fall apart on the track because originally we were like, oh, we'll just throw like the coilovers on, the sway bar, brakes, gut the interior, all the easy stuff. And then we're like, oh no, now we actually need to fix this car. So yeah, we did that. We also, everybody was mad because originally the idea that they thought was like, we'll build it and then we'll go to the track. And I was like, no, we're going to go run the first day of the event with it really bad and then do it the night at the track. So like after the last session, we're going to start building the car and then we have to run it again in the morning. Both I thought it'd be fun from like a drama perspective and just like that's the reality, right? Like if your buddies literally just roll the car and we're like, wow, this sucks. Let's fix it. Could they do that? So yeah, that's what we did. And the car was really fast and really good because we had found a slick top, base Cooper manual, which is apparently really hard to find.
Yes.
At least in New England, that hasn't been rusted out. And this one was. So yeah, that's what we started with. And that's where we landed, was with a really fun car that everybody absolutely loves here. People try to take it to lunch as often as they can, even though I'd rather they don't. And yeah, I think it's just put a smile on anybody who's driven it. And it's our way. We want it to be accessible. So like if a partner wanted to come drive, or we want to teach employees how to get into track days, that's kind of like our, go beat the hell out of it car, and that's its purpose.
Is that a push with employees that you help get them on track?
Yeah, so we try just in general, whether it's building a car, getting people on track, we try to support people in that however we can. So I guess I can talk about it. It's not like official, but we're going to be doing what we call a Weekend Warrior program next year, which is going to support people internally and externally. And it's going to kind of create, like, if you took a professional team and made it an amateur team and really grassroots, like, so if we take what we did with Pro and then brought it into the grassroots, but kind of gave it that like team vibe where, you could be racing ARA in Oregon, but you could be a part of this team, and like same apparel, same theme, same team attitude, and really like kind of spread this good word of like bringing people into motorsports and helping them find their way through it, whether that's getting someone to their first track day or supporting someone who's trying to, finish top 3 in SCCA next year. Like we want to kind of do the full spectrum of, helping people out with European cars that have aspirations, and then also want to be a part of something really special as kind of brand ambassadors. So I'm excited for that personally. And then that, yeah, Audra, to your point, that leads into like us getting people involved in the company. So we've always kind of done that with ride-alongs and bringing people to track and, giving people opportunities, but it'll allow us to probably lean in a little bit heavier.
Oh, that's really awesome. Do you want to talk about FCP Euro in general? Like what brands it makes that you serve, and what do you carry, things of that nature? Yeah,
definitely. So FCP Euro, we are an e-commerce company, which is not a nice way of selling ourselves, but yes, we have a website where we sell car parts to European car owners. So that's Porsche, Volvo, BMW, Audi, Volkswagen, Mini. That's pretty much our primaries. I don't know if I said Volvo, but I think I did.
You did, yeah.
All right, cool. The Volvo people get mad if you don't. And yeah, we mostly sell, your OEM replacement stuff. Like that's our bread and butter, is like just maintaining your car. And then we also support, performance and modification and aftermarket. But as a whole, we're relatively picky in what we sell. So we don't pride ourselves on selling everything. We pride ourselves on kind of selling quality parts that we kind of hand curate kits. So like if you're doing your thermostat, it's not just your thermostat, it's your thermostat, the O-ring that it goes to, the 3 bolts that, are likely to rust out or torque yield or whatever, the hose that always snaps on your way in there, and then the gasket for whatever. And like that's kind of what we take that like enthusiast approach to the way that we built our website and our offerings. Yeah. And then as far as value propositions, that sort of thing, outside of being an e-com, is like we are genuinely car enthusiasts. So it's an enthusiast brand. I get a little bit of pushback when I say we're a lifestyle brand, because in my head we are, because I think, people can affiliate with us even if they're not buying a car part from us, whether it's like the content that we make. So we have thousands, or not thousands, we have well over 1,000 DIYs, which is just like step-by-step tutorials on, how to work on your car. We got diagnostics guides, buyer's guides, build series, anything just from being entertained about car stuff to learning how to, change out your front control arm. So we really try to just like bring people into the community, give them kind of an outlet of like, we are the experts, but we're also like you. So like, we're not talking down in the sense of like, we're not a manufacturer, but we know what you're going through. And then we obviously partner with some brands that align around that. So again, yeah, kind of picky in what we sell, but for the right reasons, I think. And yeah, that's kind of who we are, hopefully, in a nutshell.
And does that play into this crazy return policy?
Yeah, so that honestly started from the quality aspect. So I know as much as people like, and it's fine, we want people to utilize it for oil and brake pads and that sort of thing, but genuinely like the origin of that was the ethos that what we sell as a quality part, that like you shouldn't have to worry about something breaking prematurely or expiring prematurely. Yes, that turned into, people preemptively maybe replacing injectors that cost a couple $1,000s, or burning through, 12 brake pad sets a year, but it's okay. Like that's the can of worms that we opened. And so we still, encourage people to use it however they need to keep their car on the road, on the track, or whatever it is. Because really, the ethos is like we stand by the parts, and we stand by that policy. So yeah,
that inspires a lot of loyalty. I mean, it just from talking to, other people out at the track, or wherever you are.
Exactly, and it's like, if you're racing if you're doing that, Audra, with your E30, like you're ripping through rotors and pads, like that's fine. It's like hopefully you daily an X5 and you need brake pads once every 3 years for it. And or it's like we know that it's okay if someone's usually tracking their car or utilizing the LRG, I don't want to say aggressively, but like a lot, like that's fine. Like that's cool. Like if we're helping you race, awesome. Like that keeps you out there, that keeps you happy. And again, if it's not your car, maybe it's a friend's car when they come back to shop, like as long as they're coming here, knowing that if they need the replacement, if they need the right price, if they need the quality, like we're still that same place. So yeah.
No, it's fantastic. So FCP is the head sponsor for Lime Rock. What's it like having your own track?
It's funny you say that because that's we feel really guilty saying that because it feels like that. When we walk in there, we're like, oh man, we're like those people now. But honestly, with the new ownership there, they've been such great partners. Like I don't say the word partner lightly because yeah, you can sponsor things, but like to partner on things means a lot more. So we've gone through so much with them in terms of decision making and really just like the same goals around bringing the park back to kind of like its glory days and stuff. And so it's been really special working with the team there. And yeah, I mean, personally love it. Like it feels great. It actually a little bit, I feel kind of jaded now because like you lose a little bit of that feeling of just like I remember going to my first track days and showing up to a racetrack and that uneasy feeling. And now it's just like, oh, it's like another day in the office. Like this is real life. But it's a great real life to have. So we've really enjoyed it. We brought GridLife to the park, and that Circuit Legends has been really special and unique. So it's fun for us to see like those relationships that we've had in the past, like bringing them into like almost like our new group of friends and that sort of thing as a company. I say friends, but you know what I mean? So seeing things kind of cross pollinate really been enjoyable for us. And some of the work that we do with SCDA and BMW CCA and all the other clubs and seeing them kind of in our home, it's like our home court, it's fun for us. So it's been great.
Well, you can hear like the pride and the humility in your voice and talking about it, and that's super cool.
Yeah, and that's how they are there too. So it's like it's a very at the end of the day, it's hard with big brands, right? To sometimes put a face or a personality or define them outside of like what they just are from a very tangible sense. And like Lime Rock has kind of changed that, and it always has been with like Skip Barber, and he's been the face, and they kind of have that heart. But same thing for us is like we really lean on our people to be able to drive that message home, and it's easy when you care. It's easy when you really like the stuff.
So I'm not sure if you know this, but race drivers and racing teams are ridiculously crazy and stupid. So I have one request.
Yeah.
Can you put on the website the ability for someone who has an address in Pennsylvania to pick up parts at FCP Euro? Because even if you're not on the way, we're dumb enough to go get them because, sometimes it just happens that,
you have my cell phone now. So worst case scenario, even if you can't get here, I'll bring you the parts.
All right, very well.
Does it not actually prompt you for pickup?
It's not allowed in Pennsylvania.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
So we're
New York. We have a lot of New York plates in here every single day.
I know. I'm closer than most of New York. I'm really close. Yeah. It's not that bad.
That's a request that I can probably pretty easily make.
I figured I wasn't going to train you too much there. Miss Vicky.
Yes.
Guess what? It's time.
It is time. It is time. So we are going to introduce you to the Fast and Furious Storytime questions. Yeah. So we're just gonna. These are actually quite fun, and you're gonna have. I'm quite sure you're gonna have a good time going with these.
I said you're gonna have a good time.
These are fun. These are fun. All right, we get to know you just a little bit better. So, what was your first car, and what was the worst car you ever had?
Oh, okay. My first car was an 07 Nissan Sentra. It was a manual, which was cool.
Okay.
My dad made sure that I like learned on a manual, and I took my driver's test on like a Pontiac Solstice, which is hilarious.
Wow.
Worst car. I mean, I feel bad saying it, but probably my Volvo XC70, that it's not fair because I acquired it for $2,000 and it's a $2,000 car. But
Okay.
it's definitely the roughest thing I've ever had. And not because it couldn't be nice, but yeah, it was a $2,000 car and it's definitely a $2,000 car.
You're not making friends with your Volvo friends again.
I know.
All right, so continuing with the car theme, but on a more positive note, what is the coolest car ever?
Oh, coolest car ever. This is gonna sound so biased, but I'm trying to think of what the series is. There's like a GRC Mini, like an all-wheel drive GRC Mini that a guy in the UK raced for years. And it's just like if there was a proper mini TCR, like wide body TCR engineered, but it's like all-wheel drive, 600 horsepower. I know it sounds stupid, but I honestly would probably take that over.
I think you're talking to the right crowd here.
Yeah.
We're sitting there saying, I think we could do that. The four of us would be a hell of a team. All right, very well. Do you have a car that got away?
Yeah, so my daughter's name is Elise, and that's because when I bought the Mini, I was like really considering a Lotus Elise, and it's when they were like 15 to 20 grand.
That's changed.
And I regret that decision. So literally, yeah, that's why my first daughter's name is Elise. My second daughter's name was supposed to be Cooper, but because I got to choose Elise, we went with something else. But yeah, I like seriously regret it because it was like I always wanted a Mini and I always wanted an Elise, and I just went back and forth, and I convinced myself the Mini was more practical because at the time I was driving to Dearborn to go to Ford every day, which was like a 30-minute drive and had traffic. And I was just like, oh, the Mini's like a little bit more commuter than an Elise, especially in the winter. And now I could have been sitting on like a $45,000, although it probably would have been a race car by now and worth like 10 grand.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Well, you know, when the Mini's the more practical and spacious car, what you're looking at. So,
All right. So, what is the one thing that no one knows about you that would surprise them?
I'm a giant nerd. I mean,
There
I
you go.
guess not that I don't look or not look like a nerd, but I had like a tabletop painting business on the side because, like, again, I went to art school. Like, that's my background's kind of in that realm. And I've always been like a super, super big like tabletop gaming, cards, video game nerd. Outside of like all the sports and racing and car stuff that I get to do is like I've got that in my back pocket.
You're on the right podcast with our Garage Heroes stuff. So
Nice.
So, do you have any pre-race rituals?
Ooh, I pee a lot. Yeah, like
in the car, or
I will force myself to go pee like multiple times before I think I have to get in the car because I just have this fear of like, I think there was a race we had like a 30-minute double yellow at Lime Rock, which I was actually getting like nauseous because you're going at like this terrible pace, but you're trying to keep tire temps and I remember having to pee and I was like, oh, this is the worst thing ever. Like, because like now I'm focused on that. And it's, it's like once you start thinking about it, it's all you can think about. So now I have like this constant fear of that. So probably that. And then, no, I mean, it depends if my daughter's there or not, but nothing that I can think of.
Okay. As long as it's outside.
There's one actually when I'm coming down the front straight, usually before a race start, I'll tend to like grab my helmet and be like, I'll literally say like focus, like wake up, focus, because like sometimes it feels surreal, right? You're just like, wait, is this is all that noise is this moment happening? And so it's almost like this, like, dude, it's happening. Like just buck up. So there's a little bit of that, but
okay. Well, at least since you're peeing outside the car, you're still on the potential roster, so that's fine.
That's good.
All right. Some people are familiar with the claw game. It's basically a takeoff on the claw game where you put the quarter in and you have the claw and it pulls things out. So what car would you like to go around and pull the driver out of and you jump in that you've raced against in the past, and at what track?
Ooh, that's a really good question. Let me give this like thought because I think there's a good answer here.
Okay. We can edit out. You can be the most brilliant person, like the instantaneous answer.
Exactly.
This is where Audra says, it's not me.
There was one of my early races with BMW CCA. again a mini at BMW CCA because I was like, hey, it's a BMW, so let me race it. And I was battling this guy in like a heavily modified E46 M3, which I should not have been battling with, but I was. But every single straight, I was just getting absolutely gapped. And then I would have like this super hard flyer, and then I would catch him on the front straight, and then he would walk me. And then it was like this constant. If I could have like driven his car as well as I felt I was driving my car, and just like had that S54 ripping down the straights, I think that was a moment where I was just like, I wish I wasn't in this. Like, I'm driving as fast as I can, and I work really hard for 2 minutes and 10 seconds, and then I get there and I can't get past. So it was fun. We went back and forth a bunch, but there was just like every straight I would just say, and there's like that S54 just screaming, and I was like, man, that would be nice.
So what track?
That was at Watkins.
Okay, that's where you're going to be. All right, very well.
Have you guys driven Watkins Glen?
Yes.
Yes.
It's not the best track ever.
No.
You don't like it? Oh my gosh.
It's not my favorite.
Oh, what
Those
don't
blue
you like
bushes.
about it?
The blue bushes, man.
I've hit them. You
I
just
know.
don't look at them. Just don't look at them.
You never notice the walls until you hit them. I'm just gonna tell you. That's the thing. So
yeah. I actually didn't think I was gonna be as comfortable there as I became. But yeah.
Yeah, we're overdue to go back. We went like our second year, so it's been a while.
we were kind of early in. It was just like, oh my gosh, there's walls and they're really close. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
So
It was raining.
Yeah.
So let me see. What is a car that sticks out most from your youth? Your parents, your family friends.
I feel bad because I already gave you guys the story, but like genuinely, I've never forgot the sound and feeling of that JCW Mini the first time that I like went for a ride in the back seat to my friend's house, and that clearly had an impact on my literally entire life.
Seems like it.
Because like without even minis, I wouldn't even be at FCP Euro.
Look where it led you.
Yeah, honestly, like
that one car ride.
Really though, like I'm a big believer in like the butterfly effect, where like one thing goes differently, like your whole path goes in another direction. Genuinely think about that, where I'm like, wow, because like that little seed was planted, and then when the opportunity rose, and then even if I had gotten a lease, or if I didn't flood my focus, like I wouldn't have ended up in European cars, which I would have never then been targeted by a FCP Euro ad, which means I would have never found the company. It's like this whole stem of things like that. But that, and I mean, I like vividly remember Volvo 850 sedans being like a thing in like my town. So like the parents had them, and then the kids ended up having them. It was like all those gold Volvo 850s. So when we did the 850 project here, like there was some serious nostalgia going on for me. And that was honestly like our joke about that car was just like everybody can relate to a Volvo 850 because everybody's probably sat in the back seat or like the reverse seats in one of these at some point in their life, or they knew someone that had one. So like the fact that we built one with ITBs from a BMW and like a full track spec one is just like everybody can appreciate it.
Exactly.
I'm going to go a little off script and hope they don't fire me, but when you were thinking about coming on this podcast and talking about things, did you practice a little bit in your head? And if you did, what was the story that you wanted to tell?
No, I'm really bad about this, especially because I haven't interviewed in a long time because I've been at a job for a while. It was like, I was actually worried that I wouldn't be able to just talk off the cuff because my role here is like production and pre-production. So like I'm always thinking about that for other people, but never really for myself. So I'm going to say I didn't. And I even said to my wife at dinner tonight, I was like, I'm really bad about this now. Like I used to probably would have like really thought about it and got nervous and done some research and taken notes and just made sure I hit points. I was like, I've just evolved so much as like I don't want to say as a professional, but just like my brain has just gone to a different direction where I'm like, it'll be fine. It'll be fine.
We're
That's
not worth
actually a better answer. Oh, just wing it. It'll be okay.
Yeah.
I think that's what we all do.
Yeah.
We're not worth that amount of effort, sir. Just So when you come back on later, just realize that's plenty. Okay. What is your race car number and why? And do your cars have names?
So you would think as a mini person they have names, but they don't. Not PC, but my wife does call the car that she refers to as that bitch. And
Huh?
and it's
The competition.
yes, and it's because she's always like, oh, look at her, like, of course she's getting a butt lift now, and like, oh,
Yep.
she's so high maintenance, and she always refers to it as like this competing woman in my life. So yeah, you'll hear it referred to as that. My racing number is 81. 8 has always been my favorite number, just every sport I've ever played, and then 1 was just like of course, like, yeah, you want to be in the front, but I wish I chose 82 because my daughter was born on August 2nd. But Eric Till is 82, which means I couldn't get it. So I
Yeah.
settled for 81.
I think he's got an in with Adam. I think,
Yeah. Yeah, I'm okay with that. He deserves it. He deserves this number.
Exactly.
But yeah, I also, it's like, I don't know, that number, like, you have certain lucky numbers. That one's just always been one of mine. It's not on a roulette board. Like, I have my roulette numbers as well. It's obviously not one of those, but
No,
it's the reverse because I like 18 a lot as well.
it's a perfect square.
Yeah.
You got that going for you.
Yeah.
So, what is your favorite track, and what is your favorite turn at a track?
I know the track. He's
Yeah,
already
you know
said
the
it.
track is gonna say Watkins Glen. Mid Ohio is really good too, but
Mhm.
Watkins Glen, just, I don't know. I again, it should be my least favorite track because that's where I crashed, but just the amount of like camber and grip everywhere, and just like, it just feels so intentional and flowy that like there's no part of that track where I'm like, oh, this corner, like can't stand this corner, or like car doesn't feel good. It just feels so good everywhere, and it's a really good racetrack, right? So like there's some good tracks to drive, but like Watkins is a really good racetrack where there's just like opportunities everywhere. You're always 2-3 cars wide. You can always kind of take a different route, a different line. I'd say my favorite corner there is probably,
Doesn't have to be there. It could be your favorite corner anywhere.
I really like random. I like 2-3 at NJMP Thunderbolt, which is like you come out of 1 and then you come over like that. It's like a kink in 2.
Yep.
And I think I like that because that's where like my first real pass in a racing scenario was, and it felt like surreal, where I was just like, oh shit, like that felt good. And it's just like a really fast section of the track. And then even like that next right hander, I think that's 4. That's just like way faster than I think people realize.
Yep.
So that's a really fun corner as well.
Hugely wide.
Yes.
Hugely wide.
And I just didn't want to say a Watkins Glen corner because I've spoken enough about that track. But I think that's a fun section.
Audra has a turn named after her at NJMP Thunderbolt.
We're not talking about that today.
Which one is it?
Audra has this hate relationship with the entry to the octopus.
Oh, I don't know anybody who likes that. So to be fair, you're valid there. Whatever your problem was, or whatever your fight was, or if you just cut it off completely.
Yeah, and Bill doesn't like to remind me about that at all.
Never.
So, but I'm going to ask you, what years of driving and or racing are you working on this off season or this coming season? Well, this off season.
You said what? What
are you working on?
Oh, I don't want to give you like the very literal answer because that's goes against kind of what I said, but I'm probably working on the engine again and cooling. We're going to be putting meth injection in the car to help with some of the cooling. And then I'm probably switching over to my GDI for standalone ECU. The goal is to really set up boost by gear. Like if I want to optimize the car, like car's not optimized right now in the sense of like for a turbo car within the rule set, like I should be pushing as much torque as I can, as often as I can. Yep. And like not just going off of like my peak power in 4th gear, which is like, sure, I have that for my outlap and then that's it. Whereas like a lot of the NA cars will have their 205, 210 horsepower the entire race and across, all power bands, all gears. So really probably diving into some of that, which is nice. So that's like I don't want to say all I have to do, but like the rest of the car is pretty well set up right now in terms of everything else. I might rework my whole bumper section and splitter, just because I think that there's some places to optimize that are pretty easy. Like I have some massive wheel poke in the front and Probably clean up some of the actual splitter to bumper situation.
Mhm.
So I run like, I don't know if you can see it. I know the people listening can't see it, but it's like it's a one-piece fiberglass JCW mini challenge bumper. So it's got like the splitter built in, which is okay, but I can't really change angle. And then I also wanted to make it wider where it covers that wheel, and then the arches come all the way down.
Yeah.
So
Sounds
I
like
could
fun.
said not a lot of work. Now I'm like, shit, now I need to build an engine. I need to start to dive into tuning, but yeah.
My whole side of my car is a mess. Yeah,
Yeah.
we got that.
Yeah.
All right. So Jennifer couldn't make it tonight, but her favorite question, it has to be asked every time, is what is your favorite car, movie, or car from a movie of all time?
Oh, that's a good question.
We're a hard hitting podcast, you know.
I don't know if this counts.
It's your podcast. We don't make the rules here.
Yeah. I consider like Mad Max
Okay.
like a car movie, and
It has cars.
I don't know what the car would like what it is, but there's like the giant mobile where like the guy on the guitar is playing and they're ripping the drum.
Fury Road. Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
on Fury Road, yeah, the more recent one, and that's like an oddball answer, but I think that's like the coolest like gritty car movie. That's not like one of the typical. I'm not gonna say Italian Job in the R53s.
We've had Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. We've had a lot of answers over the years. So
okay. So it's fair game then. Fair game.
Absolutely.
All right.
Miss Vicky, your last one.
Oh,
Miss Vicky, your last one, not on mute.
Sorry, kids were in the room. What is the most terrible car ever?
Oh, I mean, I don't want to offend anyone because we talked
don't say Volvo. You're already digging a hole there.
No. And I don't want to say something insensitive towards EVs, so I'm not going to say that.
Can always go Yugo. It's the punt.
Said it.
Pinto's been named more than once.
I think PT Cruisers are really offensive.
You are the second person this week to say PT Cruiser.
Yep.
I will say that in my youth, I lost a quick little pull to a PT Cruiser.
Were you on a bike?
On Woodward? No, it's because they had like I think they had the engine from like the SRT4 calibers in them. So like the turbo, I don't know if it's turbo or supercharged, but I think it was turbo because I think I remember it being on like E85 and making all the noises. And I was just like, I need to just never do this again. And I confirmed my idea that they're the worst cars ever, because it's the worst feeling ever. Like the same thing when you have a Mini, you're like, oh, you can't lose. It's a win-win situation in a Mini, right? Like if you ever lose in a Mini, you're like, oh, it's just a Mini. And if you ever beat someone in a Mini, you're like, oh, it's a Mini. And like that's how I felt for the first time ever, but it was a PT Cruiser.
Well, just for the record, how many PT Cruisers do you see anymore?
Exactly.
It's not coming to FCP Euro anytime soon.
No. Also, well, I don't want to say ultimate drivers are scary, but
yes,
cars,
they're usually rentals now.
Yeah.
I think it's a good segue to ask you how much of racing is learned, which is how much is natural skill.
Oh, I wonder what the blend is. I feel like the blend is, I'll say 70-30, but with a caveat that like I think what actually makes you naturally good or makes you better or able to learn is like your ability to either be competitive, adapt, like awareness, like things that, like, I don't think you're born a good racer. I think you're born with things that can make you good at racing, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So I think some of those things aren't tangible, like intuition would be one of them, or like ability to decision make quickly. Like those are things that are actually hard to train into, I think. And I think you see more of that in like the people who never make it to racing. So like I think like track days and time attack and whatever else can weed people out in a sense. Because I think you can even be fast and not be good at racing. So yeah, I don't know if the blend, I guess it's like a burger meat 80-20. I don't know.
That's fine. We've come to the point in the podcast where Vicky rolls her eyes because I asked the question that drives her absolutely batty. So we are going to win the lottery, and we're going to win the big lottery. So we're going to get a desert island of our own. And as a thank you to all of our podcast guests, we're going to bring you to the desert island. And we want to make sure you have a great time because we have a racetrack there. It's a dirt track and an asphalt track. And we want to make sure that your entertainment value is maximized as a thank you for coming on. So which 5 cars do we need to have there waiting for you?
Oh, man. And it's not just a racetrack. It's like everything, right? Like we're going to do a little bit of.
Yep.
Okay.
We've had taco trucks as an answer. So
yeah, that's not a bad. That's why I'm trying to think of a well-rounded answer.
Mm-hmm. It's ranged from 5 Spec Miatas to a taco truck. So anything in between.
Food truck.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna throw it in there, but that'll probably be my last answer. I mean, undoubtedly, I won't use all my answers on minis, but it would be cool to have a Gen 1, a Gen 2, and a Gen 3 JCW, or a GP1, GP2, GP3.
Oh, wow. That would be fun.
Let's just go with that just because it's easy. And then there's one for most of us here.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say, I don't know if it's 996 or 997 GT2 RS. I don't know which one, but one of them.
997.
And then I would literally want, so like I have a Porsche Cayenne Turbo that I've been wheeling for the last few years, but I would want like, there's this guy named like the Minted Cayenne who's made like proper Baja version, wide body, like it is like the beefiest version of that car that you could have. I think that would be like the island cruiser where it's like, you know, we can rip it to the beach, we can take it back up to the mansion. That's like the hop around the island car. I think I'd be good with that.
Sounds like a plan. And Jennifer will bring her taco truck, so we'll be fine. We'll be eating well.
Yeah, and if not, we can just hit, you know, roadkill with the Cayenne, and we'll eat.
There you go. That would be wonderful. So, sir, you put in all that time prepping. It was well worth it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for doing that. It wasn't so painful.
No.
Thank you for coming on. Thank you for tolerating our mini-focused FCP Euro episode. We will bother you on more than one occasion for future cars. And we look forward to seeing you out there on the track at some point. And we will be at every GridLife event that's on the East Coast. So we'll see you there.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing you guys in person. And thanks for the invite. Sorry, I can talk a lot. I can blather a lot, especially when it's minis or FCP Euro. So I apologize for that. And anybody listening, but obviously you guys hit a sweet spot on this one for me. So.
Well, it would be a very boring podcast if it was like an hour 20 of dead space. So, you know, you got to fill it with something.
Sure. But no, thank you guys for the opportunity. And yeah, let's get the minis together and let's try to get some seat time as a group. That'd be cool.
That would be fun.
Be a lot of
We've
fun.
had a great time there. All right. Thank you, sir.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Thank you.